And so what I want to talk about is the failure to plan is a plan for failure. And it's the logistics of how to do high accuracy helicopter mapping. And it's changing. Do I take?
Right here.
This one? Okay. All right now. And so the interesting thing about doing high accuracy helicopter mapping, it'll make a difference whether you got a single line or you got 50 to 100 lines to do. You have to go through the same steps in order to get accuracy. It'll make a difference on the size job. Your initialization, deinitialization, attention to detail is the same. And that's what I want to talk about today. And a project that we had where we had 18 projects to do. The projects were over a span of 1,600 miles, but the initial starting point was 2,200 miles from my office. And so our office is in this area here, actually up here, but I had to, I had to fly to Atlanta and then come over here to go to Sacramento and then start the job. And so I'm going to talk about how we did that job. And so, like I said, there were 18 projects along the way. We were scheduled to get them done in 5 days. And so we had to pick a prime weather time to do this. And so we left out on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. from Virginia, flew to Sacramento, had to move down to a different airport, had to pick up, we have a helicopter based in Sacramento. We had to take it out, do some maintenance work on it, and then we had to fly it to a little town called Airborne, which is next to Lake Tahoe. And that's where we were starting our missions the next day. And so what we did was that we had everything planned out because a lot of the areas we were flying in had no cell coverage. And we were in areas where logistically we had to know where everybody was going to be every minute. And the pilot was actually going from job to job without being able to communicate a lot of time with anybody on the ground. So we had to have signal, we did a lot of text messaging, we did a lot of different things. And so even though you're doing a large number of projects like this, like I said, each job has to have the same basic care. You have to do the same ground control, you have to get good ground control out, we had to have targets out, we had to have a location for our base stations at each one of these jobs. And what we were doing was that I had a surveyor with me, and we were hopscotching every day from job to job. We were covering sometimes up to 400 miles a day doing projects all along the way and not even seeing each other. So this is a little bit of what happened on those runs. But as I said, and you can go back, I think you'll be provided these PowerPoint presentations, and I'm not going to go into all the steps that we do each time, but under each one of these, I sort of told what is required to do an accurate survey. And this talk was actually given at another conference to teach people how to do specific surveys on a regular basis. So all these steps that you see have to be the same, whether you're doing one job, 10 jobs, one line, or 50 lines. It doesn't make any difference. And so what we would do each morning, we would get up and at breakfast at 7, we would say, okay, my surveyor who was with me, I said, you go out to a certain location, sit up on a certain point. We had that point in Google Earth or in Streets and Maps. You go to that point. By 9:15, you have to be on that point. You had to be set up. And go, ready or not, here we come. And so the helicopter then had to have so many minutes of initialization before we ever got there. And so I would go out and make sure the helicopter was ready to go, and then the surveyor would get out and set the base stations up, check the targets, and then be ready for the helicopter. We also document, every time we do a project, we document the base stations. You want as much data about this base station as you can, and you want to know exactly where they're at, what the coordinate values are. You want all that information on every single project. So when you go back to start post-processing, you have everything at your fingertips. You're not guessing which station it's set on. Did it sit on this one over here, set on this one over here? We have a sequence on our GPS units where the lower, we have 2 units, one of 7 and 8. 7 is always the primary base station, 8 is always the secondary. 8 is only used if the first one breaks down for some reason. So it's a routine, constant thing. And you have to do the flight planning. Flight planning on every job is critical based on what your clients are expecting out of you. And in our case, we started out in the mid-90s trying to get 2-foot accuracies. And then we said, well, let's try to get 1-foot accuracies. Then we got down to 6 inches, and I said, well, you know, if we ever get to 2 inches, we'll be doing pretty good. And you hit 2 inches pretty easy. We went to 1 inch. And our average accuracy for the last 6 years is less than 1 inch. And our normal accuracy now is a 1/2 inch. We have gotten down to 2/100ths of a foot vertical, but our average accuracy right now is about 5/100ths of a foot. And so you can't do that by doing sloppy work. You can't do that by doing sloppy survey work. Your surveyors have to do the right thing. Your pilots have to fly right. Everything has to be right. It has to be processed right. So your flight plans are going to be designed every time to meet those specs. Those specs may be on point density, they may be on swap width, they may be on vertical accuracy, maybe on horizontal accuracy, they may be on a lot of different things. But every flight plan is not just a flight plan, it's a design method for acquiring data.